Have you ever noticed that the moment you try to prove you deserve respect is the exact moment you lose it entirely? We are told from a very young age to stand up for ourselves and fight back when someone treats us poorly. But the shocking truth is that screaming louder or explaining your value never actually works. In fact, the most powerful response to someone crossing your line is often the one they never see coming because it completely flips the script. When someone cuts you off in a meeting or laughs at your expense during dinner, your natural instinct is to fix it. You might try to laugh along to keep the peace, or you might get defensive and start arguing. We do this because we want to fix the sudden discomfort in the room. But when you rush to smooth things over, you accidentally teach people exactly how much disrespect you are willing to swallow. Today we are looking at 5 specific behaviors that look completely normal, but are actually quietly eroding your dignity, and how 5 simple, unexpected shifts can completely change how people treat you forever. It starts so subtly that you barely notice it happening at all. Think about the last time someone arrived 40 minutes late to meet you and shrugged it off with a quick text. You probably stood there looking at your phone, feeling your stomach tighten, while trying to convince yourself it was not a big deal. When they finally arrived, you probably smiled and said it was totally fine because you did not want to seem dramatic or needy. You chose comfort over your own truth. We have all been there sitting at a table feeling small, while someone disguised a cruel insult as a playful joke. They look at you and say you are just too sensitive when you do not laugh along. In that exact second, your brain freezes. You wonder if you are actually being too sensitive, so you force a tight smile and let it slide. You do not want to make a scene, so you internalize their bad behavior and turn it into your own secret shame. This happens because we desperately want to be liked and accepted by the people around us. We think that by being endlessly understanding and endlessly flexible, we will earn their appreciation. We believe that if we just give a little more or tolerate a little more, they will finally see our value. But the reality is that people do not value things that come without a cost. When you allow your time and your feelings to be treated as cheap resources, people will treat them exactly that way. You are not doing anything wrong by wanting peace, but you are playing a game with rules that were designed to make you lose. You are trying to negotiate with someone who does not value your terms. The moment you realize that your silence is actually acting as permission is the moment everything begins to change. It is a heavy realization to carry, but it is also the first real step toward finding your way back to your own center. Imagine walking into a room where someone has deliberately turned down the lights so you can no longer see your own hands. Instead of looking for the light switch, you start blaming your own eyes for being blind. That is exactly what happens when we accept subtle disrespect in our daily lives. We assume our internal radar is broken rather than admitting that the person across from us is crossing a boundary. We look into a distorted mirror and believe the ugly reflection is our own fault. The first hidden behavior we accept too often is the passive-aggressive compliment. It sounds like someone saying you look surprisingly great today, or you did so well for someone with your background. Your old response was to say thank you while feeling a strange sting inside. The new shocking response is to look them in the eye and calmly ask, "What do you mean by surprisingly?" You do not ask it with anger or spite. You ask it with pure polite curiosity. When you ask someone to explain their subtle insult, you instantly force them to shine a light on their own bad behavior. They will usually stutter and say it was just a joke because they never expected you to pull back the curtain. By refusing to process the insult for them, you force them to sit in their own awkward mess. You did not raise your voice, but you made it completely clear that backhanded kindness will not work on you. The second behavior is the constant interruption, where your voice is treated like background noise. Instead of speaking louder or stopping completely, try using the power of the extended pause. When they finish speaking, do not immediately jump back in to reclaim your space. Wait 3 full seconds while looking at them calmly, then continue your original sentence exactly where you left off. This simple pause creates a massive emotional shift because it shows you are completely unbothered by their noise. The third behavior is the uninvited critique of your lifestyle choices or your appearance. People love to offer unsolicited advice under the guise of caring about you. The shocking response here is not to defend your choices or explain your reasoning. You simply say, "I love that this works for you." This short sentence is incredibly powerful because it validates their opinion for their own life, while completely disconnecting it from yours. You are drawing a line without ever building a wall. The fourth behavior is the chronic lateness that treats your afternoon like a disposable asset. The next time someone makes you wait without a genuine emergency, do not say it is totally fine when they arrive. Instead, say thank you for apologizing, then immediately pivot to the next topic. If they do it repeatedly, you leave after 15 minutes. When they call you to ask where you are, you gently say, I had to respect my schedule, so I moved on to my next task. This shows your time has real value. The fifth behavior is the emotional dumping, where someone treats you like a trash can for their bad moods, but vanishes when you need support. When they start their usual pattern, stop them mid-sentence by saying, I want to support you, but I do not have the capacity to hold this right now. It sounds terrifying to say, but it is the ultimate act of self-preservation. You are no longer accepting the role of the emotional custodian. When you start implementing these responses, you will notice something incredibly interesting happen in your relationships. The people who were using your compliance to fuel their own comfort will suddenly become very uncomfortable. They might accuse you of changing or being distant. This is the exact moment where the stakes get high because the pressure to slide back into your old patterns will feel immense. But this discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is actually the proof of concept you have been waiting for. It means your new boundaries are working. You are finally forcing the world to interact with your true self, rather than the convenient version you used to pretend to be. It is like rearranging the furniture in a room, where people are used to walking with their eyes closed. They will stub their toes at first, but eventually they will learn to look where they are stepping. To help you navigate this transition, you can use a very simple 3-step framework whenever you feel that familiar sting of disrespect. First, you name the behavior to yourself, without any emotional story attached. Second, you take one deep breath to let the initial spike of adrenaline pass through your body. Third, you choose a response that protects your peace, rather than a response that tries to change their mind. This framework works because it moves you out of the reactive part of your brain and into the intentional part. You are no longer a victim of the circumstance, you are the author of the interaction. You are trading the cheap satisfaction of an argument for the permanent wealth of your own dignity. It changes your posture, your tone of voice, and the entire energy you bring into a room. Think about the sheer amount of energy you have wasted trying to explain your basic worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You do not need to win the argument to win the interaction. The real victory is when you walk away from a conversation with your shoulders relaxed and your head held high, knowing you did not compromise your core self just to make an uncomfortable moment pass more smoothly. This journey is not about becoming cold or distant or unapproachable. It is actually about becoming so deeply anchored in your own value that other people's storms can no longer shake your ship. You are creating a beautiful space where respect is the baseline requirement for entry, not a prize you have to beg for. You are teaching the world how to treat you by showing them exactly what you will no longer tolerate. As you move through the next few days, I want you to pay close attention to the very first moment you feel that slight tighten in your throat when someone crosses a line. Do not ignore it, and do not rush to fix it. Just notice it and ask yourself what it would look like to respond with absolute stillness, instead of your usual defense. You might find that the quietest voice in the room is actually the one that carries the most weight. There is an entirely different way of moving through this world that does not require you to carry the heavy weight of other people's bad manners. It starts with the very next conversation you have, and the very next boundary you choose to keep intact. What is the one small area in your life today where you know it is finally time to let the silence do the heavy lifting for you?